Hi guys, welcome to the chat. Can you let me know if you can hear me? I've had some microphone issues, so I'm gonna wait until I hear that you guys can actually hear me. I'm gonna type it in the chat box too. Can you guys hear me okay? I'll wait until somebody tells me YouTube has had so many issues tonight. I've lost my complete faith in YouTube. Awesome. Hi, Ray Adams. Welcome to the chat. Let me know if you can hear me okay. I did. Oh, awesome. Thank you, B. Yeah, hello. Welcome. So glad to see you guys. And I'm glad that you can. Thank you very much, the Retro Woman 80. Thank you so much. Oh, this has been such a headache. And I'm so sorry about yesterday. I felt bad. And then I also felt bad tonight because something's going on with YouTube behind the scenes, and it's preventing me from being able to log on and do what I do best, which is live chats and connecting with you guys. But we are here. So thank you for your patience as I talked to YouTube earlier. Awesome. Thank you so much, Sammy. Yes, hello. Yes, I'm glad to see you, Stefan. Very good to see you. Let me go back and just acknowledge some of you. Hopefully, everybody else knows to trickle over from the last video. So I'm gonna actually let me look at this for 1 second, guys. Hopefully that message got over to everybody else that they can actually move over to this live chat. We'll see. We'll see. I'm going to jump in, okay? So let me acknowledge some of you. Ray Adams, hello. Welcome to the chat. Glad to see you tonight. The Retro Woman 80, hello. Welcome. Glad to see you. It's been cold lately. Hello. Always love those hearts and emojis that you put there. Thank you so much for that. And welcome to the chat tonight. If I didn't already welcome you, thank you so much. Says, been praying for you and your headaches. Thank you so much. I'm headache free today. This has been the first time I've been headache free since June. Can you imagine that, guys? Since June. I'm literally suffering with vestibular migraines at this point. But that's a whole other story. But thank you so much. It's been cold lately. Okay, this is a new person. I'm probably going to mess this up. Cascadia Condor, hello. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you tonight. I apologize if I mispronounced your screen name. Sam Hain, hello from Ireland. Welcome to the chat. I have a t-shirt that says Go Ireland on it, and I wear it all the time. I love Ireland. It's so beautiful there. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you tonight. Live Life, I think that's what your screen name is. Hello, welcome to the chat. Glad to have you. I also see B. Thank you, B, for letting me know you can hear me. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you tonight. Nancy Conway, hello, welcome. Glad to see you. I think this is, I always mispronounce. I always mispronounce your screen name. Is it Jesus or is it Jesus? Elsevier. I messed that up. I know I did. So please forgive me. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you as well. Haven't seen you on a live in a while. NW, hello, welcome. I also see Annie Welker and Deb T. Mack. And Rabbit 4, hello, welcome to the chat. 4, okay. Tell me if you guys think tell me what you think of this. Rabbit 4 says, "Can I buy you shoes or sandals, Tamara, please?" I don't know. I don't know how to take that. Let me psychoanalyze that for a second. Ocean Lover, welcome to the chat. So glad to have you. Thank you so much. I love that, Ocean Lover. Thank you so much. Thank you. Jessica J, hello, welcome. Glad to see you as well. All right, guys, so I'm going to jump in. Yeah, Ray Adams says, "This is my very first live session with you. This is fun." Oh, I'm so glad. That's so good. That's so good. Um, it's been cold lately. Are you laughing at Rabbit 4? I'm almost sure that's what you're laughing at. I don't know. I need to psychoanalyze that question and then I'll get back to you. I'll let you know what I think of that Rabbit 4. Um, yeah, right, right. Let's jump in, okay, guys? So this topic about cold-hearted people, I'm just hoping and praying we can get through this without anything technical happening. This conversation grew out of the last couple of videos that I did, which was I don't even remember all the tech difficulties I had this week. I did tons of videos recently on evil relationships, evil individuals within your family, the field of psychology and the dynamic of evil, and why we're so behind in understanding it. And so, cold-hearted people, the topic of cold-hearted people tonight grew out of those videos. And so I think you're going to like this live chat, because I'm going to break down some things that maybe you haven't even thought of, as you're engaging in your relationships and connecting with people in your life. When I'm talking about cold people during this live chat, I'm talking about anybody that you're communicating with: family, friends, coworkers, strangers, the list goes on. Now, let me ask you, um, I can't look at this chat box because you guys are talking about the whole shoe thing, and it's so distracting. Because it is kind of funny. It really is. But let me just kind of preface this topic for you, okay? But let me start with a question. When you hear the term cold hearted, or you hear cold hearted people, or you think of the word cold hearted, what comes to mind for you? Like, what are some other words that can, define what cold-hearted actually means? When I ask this question of my interns, because I'm training them, and I asked one of my interns last week, what comes to mind when you hear the term cold-hearted? And she says people who are lacking affection, lacking warmth. There's no presence of being there. Like, they could really care less about other people. They are not emotionally driven. And while those definitions are true, I want you guys to keep in the back of your mind tonight as we go along in this live chat. I'm going to try to wrap up by 7 too, by the way, 7 p.m. I want you to think of the terms indifferent, cruel, and an absence of emotional and affective empathy. So one more time, I want you to keep in the back of your mind in this whole live chat the word indifferent, cruel, and an absence of emotional or affective empathy. And here's why. When you think about a cold-hearted person, I want you to break them down into two parts. One is a cognitive, someone who's more based in cognitive empathy, I'll put it that way. And then I also want you to think of somebody who does not have what's called affective empathy. And I'm going to break these down for you tonight. Cognitive empathy is basically this. It's, I understand logically, intellectually, what it is that other people desire in life. I know other people desire romance. I know other people desire a loving family. I know other people desire to be close emotionally and psychologically and spiritually. Right up here, I understand it. I can intellectualize it. I can even write an essay on it. I get it 100%. And I get it because it makes logical sense that this is exactly what human beings want in life. They want love, connection, a spiritual connection. That's what they desire. That is cognitive empathy. It says that I am emotionally distant, I am aloof, I'm detached, I'm avoidantly attached. I'm gonna break that down later on. And I'm also impersonal. I don't have anything in here to give you, and I don't have a soul to give you, but I can give you what I think you want. And that is, for lack of a better term, that is a cold-hearted person. It's a narcissist. It's a sociopath, a psychopath. It's somebody who could be categorized as the dark empath. It's an individual who doesn't have the ability to connect. Now, let me also give you a little bit more in this area of cognitive empathy. And before I do that, let me address something. Somebody sent me an email the other day and said, Tamara, why is the term cognitive empathy? Because if there's an absence of empathy, why is it cognitive empathy? Like, why is the word empathy even in there? And it's one of those tricky words, again, that psychology creates, right? The term dark empath doesn't really make any sense, right? The word empathy should not even be in there. Well, it's the same thing with the word cognitive. So if you guys are like, if this is a distant, aloof, cold-hearted person, why is the word empathy in there? It's one of those words from psychology, again, where you're like, okay, that doesn't really make sense. Okay, so I figured I'd throw that out there. But you can also define people with cognitive empathy alone as They are people who hear and they see you. They only hear you and they see you because, again, there's no emotion involved. They can hear you, they can see you. They know what you want, they know what you're looking for. These kind of individuals may overcompensate as well. So let's say, for example, you're dealing with a narcissistic father, right? He seems to have absolutely no empathy. There's nothing that he can give you emotionally, psychologically, or spiritually. He is all up here. He rationalizes things, basically a robot. We might as well put it that way, right? AI. Why not, right? They don't have emotions, although we can get into that whole discussion on a different time. But think of a robot, for example. There's no real human connection. They function up here. So let's say your dad's a narcissist, right? He knows that in order to come across as a wonderful, loving, connected parent, he has to show that he is a loving parent. So what does he do? He may hug you in front of people. He may nudge you in front of people and joke with you. He may play a game of basketball with you or go to a symphony with you. He's doing exactly what he logically and rationally and intellectually knows that's going to make him look like a loving father. It doesn't mean he's here with you at all. It just means that he's overcompensating. Okay. Individuals with cognitive empathy also tend to be uncommitted and avoidant. Not all, but most. They're uncommitted and they're avoidant. They don't have emotions. Keep that in mind. So why would I commit to someone if I don't have an emotional connection to them? They may commit based on financial need, based on trauma bonding, based on some other issue, codependency, or they just want to say they're with you, right? I'm the cousin, I'm the mother, I'm married to you, that's my husband, that's my wife, right? They may want that association, but do they have the ability to connect, commit, and engage with you? Probably not. So they tend to be avoidant and uncommitted. There's also a rejection of cultivating empathy and intimacy. I'll put it that way. There's a rejection of cultivating empathy and intimacy. That's what a relationship is all about, right? The intimate relationship between two partners is wonderful. That emotional and psychological connection, the spiritual connection. The connection between parent and child can be a beautiful thing as well, right? Or cousins when they get together, or aunt and uncle, or whatever else exists in terms of relationship. The connection is beautiful. Well, somebody with cognitive empathy alone doesn't have the capacity to cultivate that intimacy. It's not there. I want you to think of cognitive empathy as theory of mind. Theory of mind is a part of the brain that is actually a neurological piece of the brain as well, but we'll get into that in a different video. Theory of mind is a part of the brain that helps you to put yourself in the shoes of other people. It helps you sit in the seat of other people, for example. If you don't have theory of mind, then you don't have the capacity to say, this is how that person actually feels. This is what I would have thought if I were in that situation, right? If I stalk this person, or if I'm being stalked by somebody, I know how that feels, and I'm not going to do it. A cold-hearted person doesn't have that capacity. They are cold, ice cold. And so there's actually clinical research that shows that individuals who tend to be cold-hearted are those individuals who operate from cognitive empathy alone. Okay, let me pause for a second and let me see what you guys are talking about. Hold on, I'm going to go back a little bit here. All right, let me keep going. So, NW, you're awesome. NW says send money. They're talking. I think they're talking about Rapid Force, saying he wants to buy me shoes. Thank you, Deb, for sending me good tech vibes. Thank you. It looks like we're doing good so far. The Retro Woman 80 says some people are mistaken facially for being cold-hearted. Yeah, that's so true. Think about those individuals who have a face, a resting face that is just serious, my my mom is an emotional person. She's very feeling, she's very connected, she's very interconnected with people. But when she doesn't like you, run, because it's all over her face, you know. Whereas for me, if I don't like you, I'm just going to be matter of fact with you, and I'm going to keep the boundary. You know, I'm not going to be mean or, you know, cold or stiff, if you will. But my mom, on the other hand, my brother, my older brother, he's in his 40s. He has his, you know, family at this point in his world. But when he was with my mom 24/7, he would say things like, "Mom, you're obvious," you know, because her face just couldn't lie. And so, could my mom have come across as cold? Probably, because she's really matter of fact, you know. You know, if you say or do something wrong to her, you're going to see it on her face. You're not going to see a smile. You're not going to see warm eyes. Like, it is there, you know? And so you're right, the retro woman 80. There are some people that can come across as cold hearted. Let me also say, too, that people who have a history of trauma, and research backs this up, people who have a history of trauma bonding, complex PTSD, any kind of traumatic childhood, research suggests that sometimes these individuals can come across as cold hearted. Why? Because the defense wall is often up here. And so that person, because they are afraid of being hurt, they are afraid of being manipulated, they are afraid of being deceived or getting into a relationship with somebody who's evil, right? Or uncaring or cold, the walls are always way up here. So people with trauma, not all, but most, according to research, can come across as cold because they are trying to protect themselves as much as they can. I hope that makes sense. Okay, that was a good point, the retro woman 80. Thank you for that. NW, your comments right now are fantastic. I love it. Yeah, B brings up the term dark empathy. Yeah, dark empathy. Individuals who are dark empaths, or they have what's called the dark triad, the Machiavellianism, the psychopathy, and the narcissism. The dark empath can be a cold hearted individual because the number one thing that they operate from is cognitive empathy. That's how they do it. So they can come across as very cold hearted as well, guys. Yeah, Deb says cold hearted equals my mom. Yeah. Annie Welker says mean. Yeah. Yeah, it's been cold lately. Says, I think of no compassion for others. Absolutely. There is absolutely no compassionate empathy. That's what it's called. So, this is a new term I'm introducing to the channel. I've never mentioned it before. It's called compassionate empathy. And here's what it means it says that I have the capacity to be empathic. I know what that person over there is feeling. I know that if you break down and cry, that your heart is probably feeling A, B, and C. I know that if you get into a car accident, you're probably shaking and scared and afraid and you don't know what to do. That level of empathy is human. There's no coldness in that, right? So that's normal. But the term compassionate empathy says this: I feel empathy, but now I want to do something to help you. That is compassionate empathy. It says, I have the motivation, the internal motivation, the internal stimulation by watching you suffer, by watching you cry, by watching you break. I have the feeling of wanting to help you, and that is compassionate empathy. You likely will hear about this, as we go along on the channel. Live Life says malicious individuals. Yeah, malicious individuals. Yep, that's a good word for it. Yep. Longevity Ritual says, I'm cold hearted to stalkers. Wow, I don't blame you. We can always, those of us who have really high boundaries or really high walls, or in some way we are protecting ourselves from the world because of trauma, because of feeling defeated or hurt in the past. I think we can come across as cold, but again, empathy is at the core of who we are as human beings. Yeah. Yeah. B Elkie, hello, welcome to the chat. Glad to have you. I've never seen you before on the live chat, so welcome. Says sounds like my baby daddy. That's a hard one when you're in a relationship with someone like that, or you were. You know, the communication can get really, really bad. Yeah, thank you, NW. Says God over Tamara. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you. V Stormfeld, hello, welcome to the chat. Sammy says, I have cognitive empathy. Welcome to the chat, Sammy, by the way. I don't know if I welcomed you earlier. Sammy says, I have cognitive empathy, but I think it's from developmental trauma. 100% absolutely. Developmental trauma is also something that research suggests can cause you to come across as cold because your defenses are high. But you're most likely not cold. Silent Walk, hello, welcome to the chat from Canada. Welcome, glad to have you tonight. All right, let me get back into this, okay, guys? So let me continue to give you some information on cognitive empathy, and then we're going to slide over into affective empathy, okay? So cognitive empathy, we talked about, we talked about the individual being able to see you and to hear you, but not really get you. We also talked about the overcompensation. We talked about being uncommitted and avoidant. And then we also talked about the rejection of cultivating intimacy. The next one that kind of uh, helps define cognitive empathy, I'll put it that way, is that the individual, the closer you get to the individual, the further away they get from you. So here's what research in psychology says. People who are dark empaths, people who are sociopaths or narcissists, the more you try to draw close to them and develop a normal emotional bond, the further away you're going to feel them pull because they can't meet you where you're at. They can't relate to you, and they don't have the capacity to be where you're at in that moment or in that relationship. So they push you away, right? And sometimes you may find yourself in the push pull of a relationship with of the relationship with this individual, excuse me. You may be in that push pull mode where it seems like they're close to you, but then they push you away. It seems like they're close and then they push you away again. So somebody who utilizes only cognitive empathy, the closer that you get emotionally, the more they might push you away. They also tend to have the um, this will get me what I want mentality. This will get me what I want mentality, because an individual who utilizes only cognitive empathy is manipulative. They are cold hearted. They don't have the capacity to care about how they're going to impact you. So their mindset is, this is what's going to get me what I want, because that's why they're using cognitive empathy in the first place. They have to get what they want, and they know how to do it. They know what to say to you, they know what to do to you, they know what to engage you in. Just think about a narcissist or a psychopath, for example, who's trying to date you or marry you. They have to say and do all the different things that you're going to like and find attractive in them in order to get you. My grandfather, who is a pastor, he's retired, but he's a former pastor. He was a pastor for, oh, I don't know, 45 years, somewhere around in there. And one thing that he used to say to me, and he used to say to my mom, was this. He says, an evil person is never going to come to you looking bad. And I remember saying, why, Granddad? And he's like, because an evil person has to get what they want from you. And in order to do that, they have to look appealing. That is a scary thing, right? And that goes back to my previous live chat on evil relationships. They're not going to come to you looking bad. They're going to come to you looking really smooth and really good and attractive. That's how they get you. All right, guys. Let's go to effective empathy. Then I'm going to go back to the chat box. So, what is effective? What is effective empathy? Well, effective empathy is emotion driven. It is, I have the ability to share emotions. I have the ability to sense what you're sensing, to tune into things like you're tuning into them, to really connect to other people on a spiritual, psychological, and emotional level. It says theory of mind. I can look at you and put myself in your shoes. A cold-hearted person doesn't have the capacity to do that. So keep in mind as you engage in your relationships that you're going to want to learn to decipher between what's cognitive empathy and what's affective empathy. How do I decipher what a person is actually doing? Are they just utilizing all the things they know I want to see and hear so they can destroy me, hurt me, continue to hurt me, whatever? Or am I dealing with a person who's really emotionally connected? Okay, so I think that's good to keep in mind. Let me give you guys some ideas as to what's wrong with cold-hearted people. Now, research suggests in the field of psychology, also in the field of criminology, that most sociopaths, narcissists, and those who have the dark triad traits, they tend to engage in relationships only cognitively. They intellectualize everything. And that is why sometimes, if for example, you are crying to your narcissistic, cold-hearted mother, and you need her to help you, give you some guidance, give you something, right? Money, help, support, love, affection, and she's unable to give it to you, that's most likely because she's only intellectualizing the situation. She's processing what you're saying, she's thinking it through, but she's not emotionally processing it. And when you stay so cerebral, it makes it really difficult to have good relationships and healthy relationships, right, guys? Because being up here all the time is not enough. Take me, for example, right? And I'll give you this as an example before I give you guys some ideas on what's wrong with cold-hearted people. But take me, for example. I couldn't be a good therapist, neither could I be a good navigator of these live conversations if I was only using cognitive empathy. Yes, I can intellectualize what you guys are going through. I could totally understand it. I've, studied this stuff for 15 years of my career. However, I have to have effective empathy as well. I have to know that my delivery of this information has to be slightly emotional, right? Because that's how we connect. My delivery of connecting with you guys is me going to the chat box and talking with you and getting to know you and really personalizing this chat, right? So that's effective empathy. So you want to keep in mind the importance of deciphering what is this person using here in this relationship, and can I pinpoint that there's no emotions? Now, let me bring in the spiritual piece of this, the existential piece, which says the best way to determine if a person is emotionally connected, in tuned with you, aware of things emotionally, is to go back to your own intuition. Some people call it their gut. I say it is spiritual intuition. Go back to your center, your core intuition, and really process within yourself, what is the emotions that come to me when I am in the presence of that person. Years ago, when I was studying in graduate school, I had a mentor. I really, really liked her. I thought she was a wonderful mentor. But when it came to the emotions involved in my job of, reporting families to Child Protective Services, and, really trying to work with kids who were on the autism spectrum and couldn't speak and couldn't communicate, and really dealing with some intense child abuse cases, my mentor, my advisor at the time in graduate school, could not relate to me. And every time I would sit in her office to get knowledge, to do our weekly meetings, to review our cases together, I would get this internalized sense that, no, she wasn't burned out. She didn't suffer compassion fatigue, meaning that she was so tired emotionally from being available to other people. That wasn't her. I processed all of that, but in the moments I would meet with her on the inside, I just felt something was missing, and my intuition proved to be right over time. She was not a good person. And so I think it's important to keep in mind that sometimes your intuition is enough to help you understand these cold-hearted people. You don't always need to look for cognitive empathy versus affective empathy. And you also don't need to label them a narcissist. You can just go by your intuition and your heart and ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? What am I getting? Let me go to the chat box, and then I'm going to walk you guys through some reasons why these people are cold-hearted. What's wrong with them? Okay. Annie Walker says, describing my mom to a T. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. B. Elke says, how do you turn into that? I think you mean a cold hearted person. I'm going to go ahead and just assume that's what you mean. How do you turn into that, though? A cold hearted person can be comprised of multiple things, but there tends to be three different things that research suggests is the biggest issue. And I'm going to go over this with you in a little bit too. I'm going to break it down. One is genetics, okay? Most of us are born with genes that makes us human. But think about the narcissists, think about the psychopaths, think about the people who have the dark triad traits, the Machiavellianism, the psychopathy, the narcissism. There's a genetic piece to the puzzle there. Now, somebody once asked me, Tamara, are narcissists born or made? And they're made, okay? And I think a lot of providers, a lot of healthcare professionals, other YouTubers who are in my profession would say yes, narcissists are made. But we also have to keep in mind that sometimes there's a genetic piece to the puzzle where the individual may not be as stimulated by fear as maybe other people. There may be bits and pieces of the brain that's underdeveloped in a person who's a narcissist. That's the genetic piece of the puzzle. But then there's also environmental factors, and that's who you were raised around, what you were told about yourself over the years. Maybe you were told that you deserve and you're wonderful and you're great and you're better than people, and that makes you entitled, right? Environment is the kind of teachers that you had, the kind of friends that you had and hung out with, right? So there's the genetic piece, and then there's the environmental piece, right? So narcissists being made is the environmental piece. It's a life experience shaping them, things that they hear about others and themselves. It's shaping them, right? It's kind of like a potter, think of people who make pottery and they, push their foot on the accelerator and they're molding this thing. Well, life molds the narcissist. Life molds the cold-hearted person. Do they have a predisposition, meaning do they have genes that can make them more susceptible to being narcissistic? Absolutely. But for the most part, they are like the clay that a potter would use to create something, and life shapes them. Life shapes them. That was a great question, B. Alki. I appreciate you for that. That was a great question. Yeah. Live Life says, oh my God, you're describing my mother. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people who come to my live chats, they're like, oh my God, I cannot believe she's talking about my family right now. And I'm kind of glad you guys have that reaction and that response, because here's what you're telling me. You're telling me that this is more of a universal problem than a personal problem. And so that says a lot. V. Stormfelt says, how does Milton's double empathy problem come into play with this? Ooh. Stormfelt, you're good. I'm not going to get into this, okay? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a note on this, because if I give you the short answer, that's not going to be fair. So I'm going to write this down, and we may do that next live chat, okay? Because that's an important concept as well. So I will definitely hang tight, V Stormfeld. I will definitely come back to this, okay? Because if I give you my ideas on this, I'm gonna keep going and keep going, and then you guys are gonna have more questions, and then we're into a whole new live chat. So hang tight, okay? So glad you mentioned that. Yeah, that's a very good. I think that's a great question, V Stormfeld. I was reading the rest of it. Annie Welker says subhuman. Yeah, cold-hearted people are subhuman. Absolutely, absolutely. Hi, SH. Welcome to the chat. So glad to have you tonight. Says, I think they only see you and others as a tool. Yes. Cognitive empathy is very much that. And I don't want to say cognitive empathy is bad or evil, but a person who only uses cognitive empathy, yes, it is. It's a tool, and we call that instrumental cognitive empathy. There's a goal at the end of the line, and they're just using their cognitive empathy to get to the end point of what they want. Havana or Havana, hello, welcome, glad to have you. Yeah, Annie Walker says, always blew my mind how a mother can lack a nurturing gene. Me too. Think of Mommy Dearest. I have videos on this channel from previous videos that I've done where I talked about Mommy Dearest type mothers, cold mothers, mothers who are emotionally immature, detached. Keep in mind that mothers who are cold, emotionally distant, avoidant, they are uncommitted to their children, they tend to be emotionally immature and detached for a reason. It's not like, this is an individual who just needs to grow up in the next few years. Some people do. They have a child and they're still children themselves and they have to grow over time. I think we all know that. But there are certain situations, however, where an emotionally detached mother, an emotionally immature mother, tends to have issues at the foundation of who they are. Maybe they are individuals who cannot use affective empathy. They just don't have it. It's not there yet. Or maybe emotionally detached and avoidant parents at the core of who they are have a more deeper neurological issue. And we'll get into that too in the next couple of live chats. Silent Walk says, son, wife, daughter all moved out. Witchcraft fueled them, as with narcissistic son controls them, can even talk to them. It's mind boggling. Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure it is mind boggling. Yeah. Keep in mind too that individuals that we would consider evil, if there are new people on this live chat tonight, feel free to go to my previous live chats. I'm going to post them in the description box for you last week and the week before that and the week before that, where I talked about evil relationships. It might be helpful for you to get some background as to what I mean by that. But keep in mind that with evil relationships or evil people who get into relationships with us, they tend to be cold-hearted because they're only engaging in the relationship to cause you harm. They're only engaging in the relationship to do something that's going to derail your mind, your heart, and your soul. So cold-hearted people tend to engage in relationships where they become the villain, they become the evil individual, they become the one who does all the evil, because that's just how they function. They don't have the capacity to be any other way. B, I don't know if you're talking to me or somebody else, but B says your mom sounds a lot like mine. If you're talking about my mom, you know what I've gone through all my life. You know what I've gone through. Jessica J says, my in laws are in this category. I've never seen my sister in law cry ever. Yet, I've seen the evil side of her. Yeah. I cannot be in the presence of my in laws. I felt the evil before I even knew what was. Yeah, absolutely. You can feel that, right? It's that intuition I keep talking about. And if you find yourself perplexed, like, is this person a good-hearted person or is this person sneaky and manipulative? Again, go with your whoops, I hit the wrong button. Go with your intuition. It rarely fails you. Rarely. Helen, hello, welcome to the chat. So glad to have you. Says, hi Tamara, are you still dealing with gang stalking? Are you still dealing with gang stalking? I have never personally dealt with gang stalking. You might be asking me if I'm still talking about it. I don't know. I was individually stalked twice in my career. And that was years ago. I'm going to say maybe 8, 9 years ago in my career, but I have never dealt with gang stalking. Thank God. Okay. Randolph Howard, hello, welcome to the chat. Says Randolph Howard from New Orleans, checking in. Glad to be on the live chat. Yeah, welcome from New Orleans. I need to go there. I've never been there. I need to go though. R Splendid oh 06, hello, welcome to the chat. Says, I drove 17 hours to my hometown after not seeing my mom for over a year. She had explicitly stated she didn't want to see my daughter and I. So, uh, yeah. I see what you're saying. I don't know, our Splendid 06, do you feel like she's a cold-hearted kind of a mom? It sounds to me as if her walls are way up, and depending on the dynamics of that relationship, she may or may not have a reason to feel that way, but it does seem very, very cold and detached. Hi, Phoenix. So welcome to the chat. So glad to have you tonight. The Retro Woman 80 says, "You described me, Tamara. I protect my energy and heart so hard because of trauma." Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I had a fairly decent childhood. I was loved, cared for. My brothers were crazy, but I was loved and cared for and raised and educated by my mom. She took me out of schools, homeschooled me. I think I had a very blessed childhood, if I can humbly say so. But I tend to also be guarded. I come across as open because I am when I get to know you, when you get to know me. My immediate reaction to the world is always love, openness, affection, compassion. But do I have, because of my life experiences, because of my profession, are my walls way up here with most people that I get a bad vibe from? 100%. And that is okay. So, the Retro Woman 80, it's okay if your walls are up. You have reason to be that way. I think most humans have reason to be that way. Oh, don't. I hit the wrong button. Hold on, guys. Bear with me, okay? I swear, I need somebody here on the side of me to just do all the tech work. Sheesh. Okay, L Cone Jitto 99. I'm so sorry if I messed that up and you're always on these live chats. Welcome, you're not late. I'm glad to have you. Glad to see you. Deb says, "I believe my mom's coldness is the result of lifelong untreated complex PTSD. Since she was forced to flee her country at age 6, but she still has no apparent empathy." Yeah, that's a good point. Again, trauma can create that cognitive empathy, and trauma can also cause a person to hide their heart. At the same time, trauma, if it's perpetual, and it is also the foundation of a narcissistic personality, of some sociopath or antisocial traits. Can a person with trauma learn to engage in life cognitively with no emotions? Absolutely. And sometimes that is what we see in psychopaths. Think of the Jeffrey Dahmers, for example, or I can't think of the other. It's not coming to me, and all my textbooks are right here, and it's not coming to me. I can't think of any of the other psychopaths in our history that has been. No, I can't remember too many of them right now. But that being said, you know what I'm talking about. We have a bunch of psychopaths that have done horrific things: school shootings, shootings in society. They've been jailed for stalking, harassing, murder, crime, all of that, right? So those psychopaths over there, we have to keep in mind that some of them were raised in very unstable households. Some had perfect childhoods and still became psychopaths and cold hearted, but still others, and I'm going to try to post some of the names in the description box so you'll know who I'm talking about, because there's way more than just Jeffrey Dahmer. These individuals who are psychopaths in our history, some of them have been raised in traumatic households. They were abused, sexually, psychologically, emotionally, physically. They were harassed, harmed. The list goes on. Bullied. We can just list a whole bunch of childhood traumas, and then they became these cold, evil, murderous individuals. So not everybody's like that, but let me just throw out there that a person can become that way, even with a history of trauma. Okay, I so want to continue reading your chats, but let's go ahead and get back into the content. All right, guys, what is wrong with these cold-hearted people? Well, let me just say that most of them, and research suggests this and backs it up 100%, that most cold-hearted individuals have been raised in a house where there's emotionally unavailable mothers. Now, some of you may be like, wait a minute, I had an emotionally unavailable mother and I am so not cold hearted. That is probably 100% true. But research suggests that there's a small segment of people, there's a small category of people. I'll post this research in the description box for you so you can have it. There's a small group of people where there's emotionally unavailable parenting from the mother. There's a reason why nurses and doctors, when a mother conceives, when a mother delivers that child, that the the goal is skin to skin contact. Why do you think there's skin to skin contact? What have you heard? I just want you to process this. It's because that connection has to happen, and there's a emotional and psychological connection that occurs when hormones are released. And so when a baby has skin to skin contact with mom, skin to skin contact with dad, emotions are created, hormones and the neurological pieces of who we are as human beings all intersects and intersects, and it becomes that bond that a parent and the child has to have in order to be healthy, right? So that's why there's skin to skin contact. Now, research says despite that skin to skin contact, some children are still raised in emotionally abusive or inept households where the mothers are unavailable emotionally. And so as the child grows up over time, they learn to become defensive, they learn to deal with their pain. They learn to kind of internalize their pain. They become angry with the world, defensive, and so then they become cold-hearted people. So there's one explanation as to what's wrong with these cold-hearted people. They tend to have emotionally unavailable mothers. There's also the vulnerable narcissist and the covert narcissist. Now, let me just kind of zone in on the vulnerable narcissist for a second here. The vulnerable narcissist is the individual who comes across as depressive, lonely, needy, maybe lost and confused, maybe hurting. It may look like the person that's standing over there in the corner where nobody's talking to them, right? They kind of display or give off the vibe that they are lonely, that they are depressive, that they are helpless. The vulnerable narcissist gets their attention playing that role. Isn't that interesting? They soak in and draw in all the attention by playing the role of the needy and the victim, because that's what they need. They need that at the core. They need that attention. They're narcissists. They just go about getting it in a different way. While individuals who tend to be cold-hearted can, show traits of being a vulnerable narcissist. They can come across as giving, caring, loving, lonely, depressed, anxious, socially anxious. But the reality is that that's how they hook you and they pull you in, because they come across a way that they are totally not. They come across a way that they are totally not. So cold-hearted people tend to also be vulnerable narcissists. Covert narcissism as well tends to be at the core of some cold-hearted people as well. They cloak and cover who they really are at the core, and they know how to do it well. Avoidant attachment patterns. Not everybody with avoidant attachment patterns in relationships are cold. But think of the psychopaths in our history. Think of the psychopath that's your mom. Think of the sociopath that's your brother, your sister, your cousin. Think about the evil person who is your mother-in-law, your sister-in-law, right? Think of those individuals. Do they have an avoidant attachment style? Do they seem really stoic? And there's nothing on their face that you can read as being emotional or in connection with you. Do they rarely laugh at jokes? Do they rarely hug and love people, right? Avoidant attachment patterns is often at the core of cold-hearted people. Not all, but some. You also want to keep in mind with cold-hearted people that there is what we call a characterological coldness. There's a characterological coldness, meaning that they are cold at the core of who they are. Their characteristics, who they are, how they think, what they do. Coldness is at the core of who they are. They can't change. It's never going to happen. You may be wondering, well, what about my mom or my dad? Can they ever change? Maybe, maybe not. Research suggests cold-hearted narcissists, vulnerable narcissists, covert narcissists, dark empaths, psychopaths, likely are going to have a very hard time changing. A person who has lived their life in a cold-hearted fashion, their characteristics are cold, it's going to be really difficult for them to change. They are also blind. Cold-hearted people are also blind to themselves. They kind of operate on a self-deception, meaning that they believe that they have the power to come across a way that they are not. And that's why a lot of narcissists and sociopaths think that they can get over on people with cognitive empathy. They really do engage in behaviors that they feel gets them what they want at the end of the day, when the reality is they're going to be rejected. So they have a pattern of self-deception. They deceive themselves into believing that they are getting what they want at the end of the day, when the reality is you're going to be found out, especially if Katie over there has really good intuition. You know what I mean, guys? Also, too, there's a term I haven't talked about before. It's called a hostile attribution bias. A hostile attribution bias. And here's what it says. The theory says, it says that I have a tendency to believe that everybody else is hostile, when the reality is that I'm hostile. And so it's a hostile attribution bias. It says, I believe everybody's hostile, just about, angry and mean, when the reality is that I am that kind of individual, the Grinch, so to speak. There's also an interdependent self-concept with these cold-hearted people. That's at the core of who they are. This is another issue that's wrong with them. They have an interdependent self-concept. They go off of how they come across to other people. They may come across as really loving, sweet, special people, and they go off of that, and they believe that about themselves, and they internalize it. When the reality is that they use cognitive empathy, they manipulate you, and they triangulate. That's just who they are. But there's an interdependent self-concept with them. They rely almost on how you see them. And that's how they engage in reality, and that's how they engage in their lives. Now, let's say, for example, you call them out and say, no, what you just did wasn't mean. You just walked past, wasn't nice. You're mean. You just walked past that homeless person and told them to get up and get a job. What if that homeless person is hurt? What if that homeless person has a history of CPTSD? What if that homeless person is mentally ill and has nowhere to go, right? I once worked in a downtown area in Pennsylvania, and I used to walk the downtown streets, and I would talk to the homeless people. I would walk past them. I would smile at them. Sometimes I would give them a few bucks. Sometimes, I would just stand there and talk to them before I went to work. And everywhere in that downtown area, I saw a homeless person. It was almost like they were taking over the streets. I would see them everywhere. I would see at least one person walk by them in arrogance. They were flippant, they were rude. Are there people out there trying to trick us and take our money and appear homeless when they're really not? Absolutely. But what about the true homeless person, right? So you may find that it's somebody that walks past someone who's in severe need of compassion, they are cold. Let's say you call that person out, they're not going to hear you, right? So they're going to drop that interdependent self-concept. That's where I was going with this. They're going to drop that interdependent self-concept, push you away from them, maybe even put up the barrier and treat you a certain way, because now you're showing them who they are once you call them out. And also, too, before I go back to the chat box, these individuals at the core of who they are as cold individuals that have a grandiose sense of self. Grandiosity can be delusional. It could say, I'm way up here and you're way down there. And I'm special because I breathe. I'm special because I'm special. I'm special because I believe I'm special. That grandiosity, that delusional pattern of grandiosity, is often at the core of cold-hearted people. This is who they are. All right, guys, I'm going to get back to the chat box and we're going to wrap up. I can't believe we're actually still on schedule. That's amazing. And we haven't had any tech issues. All right, let me go to the chat box, guys. Live Life says, I feel like my codependent mother became a bitter person after being in a marriage with my narcissistic father for so long. This could possibly be why she is rather cold. Absolutely. So there's research that suggests that when an individual has been abused for so long, having to withstand years and years and years of abuse has a neurological impact on the brain. The brain is constantly being flooded with cortisol, stress hormones, which in turn kicks off other things in the body, which then impacts the amygdala, which is a small almond-sized structure in the middle of the brain. I may have showed you guys this once before. I don't have any paper near me right now, but it's an almond-sized structure in the middle of the brain, and it really helps us cement our emotional memories, and it also helps us kind of almost like a pair of glasses or a flashlight. The amygdala kind of searches our environment for evil, for cold people, for destructive people, for danger, for fear, all of that, right? So the amygdala is almost like our companion. It tells us when something's off. So somebody who has endured years and years of abuse, live life, possibly like your mom, cortisol is kicked off every time there's an issue. The amygdala is constantly in a mode of protection, and fight or flight is constantly on. And having that constantly impact your daily life can really cause a person to become cold, angry, mean. The list goes on, even abusive themselves. That's sad, right? Not everybody becomes that way, but some do. All right, I'm going to the next one. Ellie Wynn, hello. Welcome to the chat. So glad to have you tonight. Says, hi, Tamara. Interesting topic. Thank you, too. You're welcome. And thank you for coming tonight. Critter, hello. Welcome to the chat. I don't know if I welcomed you yet. Says, my nervous system is in a high state right now from leaving a relationship with someone like this the last week. Just saw the evil and that I couldn't help after 5 years. Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes you're in a relationship with someone and you don't see that they're cold hearted until about 20 years in. And that has always discouraged me. I'm sure some of you feel the same way. It's discouraging, right? It's like, why am I why would I want to be in a relationship where, everything is beautiful and then 20 years in, you're the devil? Like, why? You know what I mean? So I'm sorry to hear that, Critter. That's a tough position to be in. And I'm sure you're going to remain in a high state for a while. Coming to the reality that a person is cold, that a person is doing evil things to you or to other people around you, it does a number on you. It really does. I think it's good to get into therapy if you can. Therapy's not for everyone. And I'm not a therapy pusher because it's not for everyone. But for those who could benefit, why not? All right, I'm gonna keep reading through these. Deb says, I think my mom only sort of understood empathy or nurturing. I'm guessing that isn't the way she was parented. Yeah, absolutely. She was like Mr. Spock from Star Trek. Ooh, logic, only logic, not evil, just unfeeling. Yeah, absolutely. Have you ever seen those really intelligent, smart people? Those who can tell you what the stratosphere is. I have a client who's 10 years old who's like that, and he pulled something on me last week, and I'm like, okay, I'm smart too. Don't push me. I know what I'm talking about. But he's really smart. He's 10, and his parents have like taken him all over the world. By the time he was 5, he had been to at least 4 countries. Like I took 5 steps or 4 steps as a baby. He's been to 4 different countries. So his parents have really cultivated his knowledge, and so I was talking about the world and talking about the universe, and he hit me with the term the stratosphere, and I'm like, okay, no, wait a minute, the stratosphere. I couldn't remember what it was, and I'm like secretly trying to Google the stratosphere while his head is down and he's talking to me. I'm like, stratosphere, Google, and so he's the kind of kiddo. I love him. He's wonderful. He's the kind of kid though who, if you want to hug him, don't, because he'll push you away. Or if you go to hug him, it's going to be awkward. But he's like insanely smart. So Deb, you're right. You don't necessarily have to be cold. You're just unfeeling. And so this 10-year-old kid is kind of an example of that. He's a sweet kid. He's just unfeeling. you know Okay, so SH says, yeah, thank you for this one, SH. SH says, therapist speaks said, narcissists don't have relationships, they take hostages. I think that's a good one. Narcissists don't have relationships, they take hostages. That is true. I mentioned this, but I also say it in a different way to my clients. I say narcissists don't have relationships, right? They come to destroy them. And so my one client, from I'm going to say 5 years ago, she married a narcissist. He was so cold, like he had no feelings. He was just so unemotional, and he didn't care about most people. What he did is he kind of sucked her in with all this romance and charm, and as soon as she said I do, literally the night of their wedding, as they were going packing for their honeymoon, they were, going out of the country, he started talking mean to her. He cursed her out. She told me, I'll put it that way. He told her that he's sorry that he married her, that 5 minutes after they both said I do, he wanted nothing to do with her. She tried to get it annulled, but what he kept doing was, he would kind of, like I mentioned earlier, this push and pull in the relationship. I like you, but I don't. I want to be with you, but I don't. I'm here for you, but I'm not. And so it kept her confused for 15 years. 15 years. And she was like a hostage. So SH, totally agree. It's been cold lately says evil is one word short of the devil. Absolutely 100% couldn't agree more. Nancy Conway says, wow, you described my sister with the push and pull. It's so hurtful, but I'm learning how to deal with this a little better. Yeah, absolutely. Keep in mind that sometimes individuals who are not cold, they tend to be very emotional. Like some people with borderline personality disorder, not all, but some, tend to be very emotional and they engage in that push pull too. I need you, but I don't want you. Please be in my life, but then give me some space. So keep that in mind too, guys. Not all cold people are engaging in that push and pull. Sometimes they're overly emotional. Gorilla Twist, hello, welcome to the chat. So glad to have you, and thank you for this. Says, love this info, so insightful. Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm so glad it's helpful. Frankie Robinson, welcome to the chat. So glad to have you tonight. Says, grace and peace, Tamara Hill. Tam fam, what's poppin' and how long have we been on? Oh, that's so cute and sweet. I think we've been on for a little over an hour, and I'm going to sign off here in just 5 minutes. But I'm glad to see you, Frankie. B says evil hides behind good. Yeah, such as church, doctors, lawyers, etc. That's why we can't believe anything you hear, nor half of what you see. Yeah, I totally believe that. And I said in my last live chat, B, and I'm glad you brought that up, that I think churches and religion is where evil hides the most because it can be hidden the most, right? Why would we think that the synagogue across the street or the Christian and Catholic church down the road would have child predators in there, would have people who are racist and mean and cold and cruel and not very compassionate sitting right at the front of the stage in the church? Like, why would we believe that? So evil can hide the most in those areas. Evil can also hide the most in my profession, right? As a therapist, as a psychotherapist, as a researcher of the mind, right? I mean, I have colleagues that I've had in the past, and I just look at them and I'm like, why are you here? Just leave. You're not loving, you're not caring, you're not compassionate. You're making that person a spectacle over there. So yeah, I very much agree, B. All right, I'm just going through just to make sure. Hello, fairy girl. Welcome to the chat. I certainly don't want to act like I didn't see you because I saw you. Welcome. Glad to have you tonight. Yeah, she says, here's to feeling authentically safer. Much respect. Yes, I love that. SH, cold hearted or just shut down. Yeah, sometimes you can be shut down too, SH. I'm glad you brought that up. Keep in mind, guys, that shutting down can be, a form of defense around your heart sometimes when you don't want to deal with things or when other people don't want to deal with things. So yeah, we probably should keep in mind that what is shut down could look cold hearted. Empowered woman, hello, welcome. I haven't seen you in so long. Glad to have you tonight. Says, just got in, so happy to see you live. Yes, and I'm so happy to see you because I haven't seen you in a while. Ray Adams says, how would you describe what is a healthy balance of both types of empathy? Is one more beneficial than the other in certain moments or perhaps harmful? Ray, Adams, that's a fantastic question. Psychology suggests, and I personally and professionally believe, that being in the middle is the most healthy place to be. You should have both cognitive and affective empathy. You shouldn't have one or the other. If you're too empathic, then you're probably overly dramatic and overly emotional, maybe histrionic, right? If you're too on the cognitive side of empathy, then you're going to be what we're talking about tonight, which is cold, unfeeling, unemotional, detached, aloof, and distant. The middle of the road is what research suggests is the healthiest way. When I step into my office and I sit down at my desk and I'm talking to a client for the first time, I have to have effective empathy so I can feel the pain and suffering that they have been through, so I'll know how to help, so that I will have compassionate empathy, meaning I feel your pain and I want to help you. Compassion and empathy. But then I also have to have cognitive empathy, because if I can't conceptualize, rationalize, or intellectualize what you've gone through, then my effective empathy will be lacking. So I have to be somewhere in the middle, right, guys? And so we kind of have to be somewhere in the middle, parenting with our parents in all relationships. Fantastic question. Thank you so much for that. Anthony Stubbs, hello, welcome to the chat. So glad to have you tonight. I don't remember seeing you, so welcome. HJGHKJCH, I never know how to say that screen name. Welcome, glad to see you back on the live chat. Says, for example, all I've said online in comments, etc., I'd be saying to a therapist, but therapy costs money. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. You guys are talking about something else. Ignore that. You guys are talking about something else, and I got in the middle of it. Fine Tune 70, hello, welcome to the chat. Glad to have you as well. Says, how do you protect yourself from these kind of people? That's a fantastic question, and we're gonna wrap up here in a little bit. Protecting yourself from these kind of people. I wish we had a manual, an article, a journal, something that could tell us professionally how we can protect ourselves from these people. I often tell my clients this, that you kind of want to fine tune your intuition, do what you're doing now, which is getting the knowledge, so you're becoming knowledgeable and educated about what the signs are of these people, but then also sharpen your intuition so that both of those things can be at work the next time you see a person or deal with a person or get into a relationship or something, right? Because the more educated you become and the more intuitive, excuse me, that you become, the better you're able to spot these people ahead of time. Is there any set way to protect yourself? No. No, I wish, but there isn't. And and I'm still looking. Like, even before this live chat, I was online. I was at one of my professional libraries online, and I'm Googling articles and I'm looking because I want to be able to give you guys additional tools tonight. And I couldn't find anything that says, here's what you do to protect yourself from these cold hearted people. It's always, red flags or red signs, or, look at these 15 signs, but there's never any real direction on how to deal with these people. When I find it, I'll certainly bring it to the channel. Word Life, hello, welcome to the chat. So glad to have you. Says, there seems to be an energy shift amongst people lately. Yeah, or recently. I'm actually happiest alone, away from people. I don't blame you. I do not blame you at all. I think since COVID, since 2020, that there has been a huge shift in people. I was glad. My mom and I, we were driving around the neighborhood the other day, and we're looking at the Christmas lights on our way home, and I'm like, Mom, I'm kind of glad to see that people have Christmas lights up, even though some people had Christmas lights up back in June. And believe it or not, in my neighborhood, there were some people that had them up in June. But, we're driving home and we're going around the neighborhood, and we're looking at Christmas lights. And I'm like, Mom, I'm kind of glad to see people have Christmas lights up. And my mom's like, yeah, me too. And I said, Mom, you know why? Because I think that shows me that we're still trying to be a loving, compassionate, in tune, connected society. We're trying to live life as we know it. And that's a good sign. But I'm with you, Word Life. I feel like there's been a total shift. And sometimes it is better to just be locked away in your home, right? I don't blame you at all. And I don't think that's odd. Martia or Marthea Wells, I apologize for that. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you. Says, Thank God we can heal our minds and bodies with awareness and practice and time. Absolutely. You know, you can also heal your mind and your body and your soul through faith as well. If that's the route that you go, that can also be healing as well. Sean Hammer, hello. I'm so glad I scrolled up. I was going to miss you. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you. Robin, welcome to the chat. Glad to have you as well. Says, it's like how, when is the closest people to you thinking about therapy, but I don't even know where to begin. It's like how, when is the closest people to you thinking about? Okay, I don't. I'm missing the understanding there, Robin. I'm so sorry, but you're saying I don't even know where to begin. Maybe clarify that for me, Robin, and I'll be happy to answer it. MNL Odell, hello, welcome to the chat. Glad to have you tonight. Yeah, from T. Roosevelt. Walk softly, but carry a big stick. Ooh, that's a good one. I love that. Yeah, that's a good one. Mindset, hello, welcome. Glad to have you. MMNL Odell and Mindset says the amygdala. Hopefully, you guys heard my explanation of the amygdala, an almond sized structure in the brain. This is not an almond, but this is about the size of the amygdala, and it's shaped like an almond. And it's like a flashlight. It protects us from danger because when we are in a certain environment that's threatening, it kicks on, you know? It's literally like a flashlight. Courtney Fraser, hello, welcome. So glad to see you tonight. Okay, making sure I didn't miss anyone. Ronald Zion, hello, welcome to the chat. Glad to have you. Says, do you think extreme, cynical, and sarcastic people have sociopathic tendencies? It really depends. There's some people that think that coming across as cynical and sarcastic is cute. There's some people that think it's charming to be cynical and sarcastic. And there's also those people who are sociopaths who think it's funny to be cynical and sarcastic when it's hurtful, arrogant, and condescending. I think it can be both, you know? That's a great question, Ronald Zion. Thank you for that. Okay, I'm just checking to see, make sure I didn't lose anyone, miss anyone. You guys have such awesome comments. Okay, KHH, hello. Welcome to the chat. So glad to have you as well. Yeah, you're welcome, Silent Walk. Yes, you're welcome, Phoenix. Says, I'm so thankful for your live chats because I've had to isolate. Thank you for real. Yes, you're welcome. And thank you guys for being so engaging on this live chat. You guys are wonderful. I see a couple more people I want to acknowledge before we go. My Lord, we have Alice Aquarius. Hello, welcome to the chat and welcome. I don't remember seeing you before. Says, hi, I'm trying to get away from a boyfriend that does push and pull. I would block him and he would make new numbers. I do love him, but he can't commit because of his mother. They both are narc BPD. He's enmeshed. Yeah, that's a little bit difficult. That's where you want to kind of, oh, let me get this button here. It's going to bring an ad on. We don't need an ad. But this is where Alice Aquarius, this is where you want to pause and ask yourself, is love enough to cover that situation? Is love enough to cover the multitude of sins that's in that situation, for lack of a clinical term? Or do I have to take my feelings and go to a healthier side of the world and a healthier relationship? And it sounds like that's what you're trying to do. The best way to get away from somebody who's engaging in that push and pull kind of communication with you is to stop answering them. Don't answer. They get new numbers, block. They try to come to your job, call the police. Like there's ways that you can show them no matter what you do, it's the same answer every time. That might be helpful. I hope it's helpful. Miranda Clues, hello, welcome to the chat. Glad to have you. Says, Tamara, I love your videos. My brain won't, thank you so much for that. My brain won't let me accept my ex for who he is. I'm a social worker in training, and I know he's a sociopath, but I still can't let go. How do I accept it? I hate to say this, but I think sometimes the brain doesn't seem to catch up to where the heart is, or the mind. And so what I mean by that is, our heart is telling us one thing and our mind is telling us something else. So you almost have to ask yourself, what is the climate or the state of my mind around this person? Am I fantasizing? Am I thinking there's a possibility of a reunion? Am I fantasizing about our relationship? Am I thinking about him every moment, every second of the day? Because if that's the case, that's probably why you feel stuck or you can't accept the truth of it. I use what's called cognitive behavior therapy. I work with thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. And sometimes those thoughts that we have that's repetitive or obsessive really makes our feet go in a direction we know it shouldn't. So maybe that can help. I hope that's something maybe you can think about. Monica, hello, welcome to the chat. So glad to have you tonight. Says, I was brought up by narcissistic parents, so now I have problems trusting people. Yeah, I'm sure. Absolutely. Rad Angel, hello, welcome to the chat tonight. Glad to have you. Says, listening to two audiobooks, Adult Daughters, Narcissistic Mothers. Yep, that's a good book. And The Highly Sensitive Person's Guide to Dealing with Toxic People. That's another good book. If you guys want the book, I'll try to post it in the description box. Is my button? Looks like my timer is going off on my camera. I don't know. I don't want to lose you guys. Okay, I think I got everybody. You guys are wonderful and beautiful and so engaging. Thank you for being here on the live chat tonight, guys. I love you so much. I say that all the time, but it is true. Thank you so much. I'm not going to do a video on Sunday because I think this live chat needs to sit on the channel for a little bit. But I hope this was helpful to you guys. Have a wonderful weekend. If you have further questions, comments, put them in the not the description box, the comment section, and I will get to them. Okay, guys? Love you again. Have a wonderful weekend. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.